Today, we will reflect on both the history and philosophy of the Rotary movement, as well as my personal experience with Rotary. There are 4 types of civic groups: fraternal organizations such as Masonic Lodges, often with elaborate secretive rites closed to the publics; secular civic groups such as the Rotary, Kiwanis, and Lions clubs, which seek to serve the community; business networking groups such as the Chamber of Commerce, where each member promotes their business; and civic groups that have a limited membership base, such as the Catholic Knights of Columbus. There were Masonic lodges active before the French Revolution, and in modern times there are numerous rites in existence. Other fraternal organizations, such as the Elks and Moose Lodges, were formed in the late 1800s, and often they raise money for charitable causes, such as the Shriners Hospital. The major civic groups, mainly Rotarians, Kiwanis, and Lions, were organized in the early 1900s and are only secondarily business networking groups. And likewise, the business networking groups may raise money for charities. Now, historically, many Christian denominations were opposed to the Masons and other fraternal organizations, and the modern Catholic Church has never revoked its historic condemnations of these organizations. Individual members of these lodges will vehemently disagree, pointing out that these fraternal organizations strive to be non-denominational. And in truth, most pastors and priests will bite their lips and not mention these official stances to their parishioners, seeing their modern incarnations as somewhat harmless. For all, how threatening can elderly men with funny caps tootling about in small motorcycles and tiny cars in parades be? The Rotary clubs, which I recently joined, have no secrets. They're quite open about their philosophy. The first Rotary club was founded by attorney Paul Harris and 3 business associates, each with a different occupation, in Chicago, Illinois. Since they initially rotated the meetings among the offices of the members, they named it Rotary. But they quickly established a fixed meeting place, and Rotary very early became a service-oriented organization. By 1910, there were Rotary clubs in San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle, and Los Angeles. In late 1910, they founded the first international club in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Canada. In 1912, they founded clubs in Ireland and London, and in 1922, they changed their name to Rotary International after founding clubs in Cuba, the Philippines, and India. And the Rotary movement grew both nationally and internationally, and many Rotarians were active in the founding of the United Nations after the end of World War II. Today there are Rotary clubs in most countries, except for many Middle Eastern Muslim countries. In the 1980s, women became eligible to join the Rotary clubs in America. Today there are over 46,000 Rotary clubs worldwide, with about 1.5 million members. Early in its histories, the Rotary clubs adopted the 4-way test. The Rotary website states that the 4-way test is a nonpartisan and non-sectarian ethical guide for Rotarians to use for their personal and professional relationships. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? And the 4-way test is a restatement of the Golden Rule that is the core teaching of all Judeo-Christian traditions, with an emphasis on developing fellowship with fellow Rotarians. One example is when an inquirer challenged Rabbi Hillel, "Convert me to Judaism on condition you'll teach me the entire Torah while I stand on one foot." Hillel said to him, "That which is hateful unto you, do not do unto your neighbor." That is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. Now, go and study. Likewise, Jesus quoted from Deuteronomy, the core of the Judeo-Christian tradition, that you should love God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, and with all of your strength, and you should love your neighbor as yourself, which summarizes the teachings of the law and the prophets. Now, you might object, since the Rotary is a strictly secular organization, this wouldn't apply if you do not subscribe to the Judeo-Christian tradition. If so, you can instead love the good, the Platonic notion that truth is not subjective, that there is an objective truth that applies to all humans, or the natural law of the modern philosophers. Virtue is not relative. Now, St. Augustine applies this twofold love of God, or love of good, and love of your neighbor, to biblical interpretation. Our saint teaches us that all scriptures must be interpreted in light of this twofold love. And when the literal reading of the scriptures appear to violate this twofold love, then it should be interpreted allegorically. And this principle can be extended to our relations to our neighbors, that we should think the best of our neighbor, so that we can bring out the best in our neighbor, and everything that we think, say, or do should be beneficial to all concerned. And the same pattern is seen in the Decalogue, where what we think of our neighbor affects our speech and actions, and where our speech also affects our actions. Now note that the 4-way test bids us to speak the truth, and only say what is beneficial to our neighbor. Note that it does not say we should not lie, as the commandment reads not that we should not lie, but that we should not bear false witness against our neighbor, which means that we should also guard the reputation of our neighbor. This means that we should not gossip about our neighbor, even if what we say about our neighbor is true. But that is not beneficial if it harms the reputation of our neighbor. The Rotary website states that the object of Rotary is to encourage and foster the ideal of service as the basis of worthy enterprise, and in particular to encourage and foster first the developments of acquaintance as an opportunity for service, second, high ethical standards in business and professions, the recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations, and the dignifying of each Rotarian's occupation as an opportunity to serve society. Third, the application of the ideal of service in each Rotarian's personal, business, and community life. And fourth, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a world fellowship of business and professional persons united in the ideal of service. Historically, Rotary clubs have striven to have a balance of occupations in their membership. Also, we have seen in the recent political struggles how the first allegiance of professionals like attorneys are to their profession than to their employers, since a bar association can revoke their privilege to practice law. We see this from the local courts straight up to the Supreme Court. This is true of many professions, accounting in particular. Rotary attempts to spread this ethos of responsible behavior across all professions. There's a heavy emphasis on the international efforts of Rotary. One project is to totally eliminate polio from the face of the earth. Last year there were only a dozen or so cases around Afghanistan. They even convinced the Taliban to permit them to inoculate remote villages against this disease that ravaged so many a century ago. Now, what was my experience in joining Rotary locally? Recently, I attended the first phase of the Rotary Leadership Institute held on a Saturday in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and have visited many of the larger clubs in my area. The Rotarians strive to be diverse, and women make up roughly half of the membership and leadership of the clubs in my area, and there is substantial participation by minorities. Most attendees were over 40, but there were some younger members. Younger people are welcome, and one of our younger participants belonged to our high school Interact Club, which is sponsored by a local Rotary chapter. If you want to live a godly life, if you want to not only love your neighbor, but want to serve your neighbor, Rotary is an excellent example to serve the community, and your church can partner with Rotary on these community projects if you like. There are many larger clubs and smaller clubs, and if they meet at a country club, they likely have some more prosperous members. One meeting I was visiting, I was sitting next to an investment advisor in an established family firm. He said he joined Rotary because he was not interested in joining another business networking club. He wanted to join a club that gave back to the community. Members of Rotary clubs not only give alms to charities, but they also donate time and service, getting involved with the community. Now, if you don't think this is true with your local Rotary clubs, then you can join Rotary yourself and make it more true. Fellowship is a big part of Rotary, just as it is with churches, and the larger cities have multiple chapters, and you can visit many chapters to find one that is welcoming to you. But people are people wherever you go, and Rotary people are no exception, so whatever acquaintances you form in this world, you should simply strive for everyone you meet to become slightly better people because they met you, that you bring out the best in most everyone you meet. Rotary is very receptive to this compassionate ethos. In Rotary, you are encouraged to tell your compelling story of why you joined Rotary. This is my story. I had a traumatic experience with serving as an officer for an over 55 condominium association. We were threatening foreclosure on a problem owner who had been in and out of collections for about a decade, and of course he owed maintenance fees. His neighbor warned us that we should reconsider, that there was something not right upstairs with this fella. We went ahead with the foreclosure. He was also harassing the office staff, and many of his neighbors complained about his demented behavior. I visited him with a good-hearted lady who ran a guardianship service, and found he was totally out of touch with reality. He had no conception of his impending foreclosure. He was relying on his neighbors to feed him. He had no family. I called the attorney and stopped the foreclosure so the court could appoint this wonderful lady as his guardian, and she placed him in a compassionate facility and sold his condominium to pay his debts. My fellow board members were pissed. 6 months passed, and then they censured me, demanding that I resign, and instructed the attorney to mail a letter to all unit owners saying how I was not a team player, how I somehow was endangering the association. I responded by spending several $1,000s for my own mailing, printing in red letters on the front of the envelope that I was being censured for stopping the foreclosure of a destitute owner with advanced dementia who had no family and nowhere to go. Now, this could have happened in any of our over 55 communities. People just don't know how to treat those who are suffering from dementia. And about 15% of them do not have family to take care of them. The notion that we're responsible for our actions lies at the core of our religious beliefs in our society. And the uncomfortable truth is that dementia robs its sufferers not only of their memory, but also their reasoning and their moral compass. They're controlled by their emotions. Now, the police are becoming more aware of how they should respond to those suffering from dementia and how to respond to them, so be quick to call the police. Above all, if someone over 60 is behaving strangely, even if they have a history of odd behavior, they may have dementia, and in the very early stages it can be difficult to diagnose. Now, my goal is to educate the public on how we should treat our elderly and those with dementia with more compassion. At first, I organized a seminar on my own, but it had very low attendance and was not a success. Then, after joining Rotary, we organized another community seminar, and with the support of fellow Rotarians, it was more of a success, and next year's seminar will be a greater success. The Alzheimer's Association is a sponsored charity, not only for our local Rotary Club, but also for Rotary International. Locally, they have monthly Zoom meetings where they discuss the progress on battling dementia. Some Rotary clubs meet twice a month, some meet weekly, and at each meeting they ask someone in the community to inform them about their cause. We spoke before several of the larger clubs about our aging seminar, and we had some participation. But this also means that each club has between 24 and 52 speakers each year, so perhaps we will need to speak before each club several times to be noticed by each member. Now, another Rotary tradition in many clubs is Happy Dollars, or Happy $5, where the money is earmarked for charity. There are Happy Dollars because you're encouraged to share your own Rotary moment or happy thought. So I say I'm happy because of a saying I've read from a favorite Stoic philosopher like Epictetus or Rufus or Seneca or Marcus Aurelius. Most people are aware that Judaism is the primary influence of the early Christian tradition, but not as many are aware that an important secondary influence is Stoicism. And this is a good fit. Just as Rotary is evangelical about living a godly life, so is Stoicism. These Stoic sayings sound Christian, but they are secular. And many of the medieval Jewish rabbis have many Stoic aphorisms as well. Now, how can ordinary people make a difference? Quite often they can. And take inspiration from the ordinary people who helped defeat Nazism in World War II. In particular, the freelance spy, Agent Garbo, who was an ordinary Spaniard who worked on a farm, who eventually fooled Hitler into committing troops and tanks to Calais, ensuring the success of the landings on Normandy Beach on D-Day. Now, there are two versions of the Rotarian Code of Conduct, which emphasize that the four-way tests are rules for living. And we might ask, are there Rotarians who try to replace religion with Rotarian ethics? And perhaps there are. But perhaps if Rotarians take these rules to heart, Jesus will speak to their hearts, saying what he said to Cornelius. Your prayers and your almsgiving have ascended as a memorial before God. And this is the 5-point version of the Rotarian Code of Conduct. As a Rotarian, I will act with dignity and high ethical standards in my personal and professional life. I will deal fairly with others and treat them in their occupations with respect. I will use my professional skills through Rotary to mentor young people, help those with special needs, and improve people's quality of life in my community and in the world. Avoid behavior that reflects adversely on Rotary or other Rotarians. Help maintain a harassment-free environment in Rotary meetings, events, and activities. Report any suspected harassment, and help ensure non-retaliation to those individuals that report harassment. The 8-point Rotary Code of Conduct was formerly known as the Declaration of Rotarians in Businesses and Professions. The last point is an addition. Do not seek from a fellow Rotarian a privilege or advantage not normally accorded others in a business or professional relationship. And another point is that we should treat all those whom we meet with dignity and respect. Be fair in all dealings with others and treat them with the respect due to them as fellow human beings. The avenues of service also encourage Rotarians to first live a godly and ethical life and involve ourselves with the community and with the youth of our community. And to learn more about the international efforts of Rotary, please visit their website. To sum up the ethos of Rotary, Rotary is an opportunity to give back to the community. Sometimes you'll be recognized, sometimes not. Whether your business will prosper because you join Rotary? Not so much. That's not the goal of Rotary. Although the connections you make with fellow Rotarians may eventually prove valuable in increasing your earthly treasures as well as your heavenly treasures. And since this is my story about my experiences with Rotary, I choose to close it with my favorite country songs. You don't love God if you don't love your neighbor. The YouTube description includes a link to our PowerPoint script that we uploaded to SlideShare and also our blog. And please consider becoming a patron of our channel. Plus, you can click on the Meetup or small M icon to participate in our online discussions, where we practice our future YouTube scripts. And please click on the links for other videos that will broaden your knowledge and improve your soul.